Good day. My name is Dave Glover. Today I'd like to talk to you about using feeds and application rules within NetWitness. Both have their place. There is a little bit of overlap with what they can do, but let's talk about that. First, let's talk about feeds. Feeds are used to match a piece of meta and add additional information to the session. For example, when we see the username of Mary, we'd like to add in the function of DBA to all the logs and network sessions. That would be a good example of a feed. Another one are I'm bringing in threat intel information and I need to compare the addresses that I'm seeing to see if they line up with any of these threat sources. And if they do, I'd like to add in the threat source to that communication that I'm seeing. Application rules are a little bit different. They're used to add meta if a following condition is met. So for example, I want to tag all non-standard traffic for my organization. My organization allows port 80, port 443, and port 53. I would like to tag the sessions if the communications are on any ports other than that. Once it's tagged, I can then use that data in reports or in ESA. So let's actually see how this looks in NetWitness. First, let me show you the two feeds that I would like to upload into NetWitness. Now there's two different ones I have. One is I want to take a look at the JA3 hashes and see if they match any of these from the JA3 malware database. The other feed that I'd like to upload is what we were just speaking with those examples, and that's roles. So when we see the username of Bob, I want to add in his function of DBA. I want to add in his building location, which is 3, and then the state or city, and then state. So I want to add in these two different feeds. And they both can be configured just a little bit different. Let's first start off with going to where the feeds are built. So we click on Configure, and then we click on Custom Feeds. And then we click the red plus. There's two types of feeds that you're going to be prompted with, a custom feed or an identity feed. For probably 90% of all the feeds that you'll be creating, they will be custom feeds. So we click on Next. Once we do that, there's two different types of feeds. I can either do as a CSV or as a sticks feed. The two examples we're going to be going through right now will be using CSV. The other task type is ad hoc or recurring. With an ad hoc type feed, I give it a CSV file and it goes and does its thing. If I do a recurring feed, however, it will ask for a URL where it can pull the file down. So if you're hosting some CSVs with malware or some sort of threat intel, you can have the system pick those up and recur every 1 minute, hour, day, week, and any combination thereof. But for our simple example, we're just going to do an ad hoc type feed. So first thing we want to do is we want to name the feed. So in this case, we'll just do roles. It's pretty simple. And now what I want to do is I want to select the file. Now I've gone ahead and selected my roles.csv. At this point, we're just going to click Next. And it's going to say, where do you want that feed deployed? It defaults to the context hub, but I also want to push that to my two different log decoders and my packet decoder as well. So let's click Next. Here's where we need to define what the index column is and where I want to put this additional information. First off, this is a non-IP, so I want to click on here. And what is my index column? Well, my index column is going to be column 1, so that's the usernames. Now I need to define a callback key. The callback key is there so that it knows what to compare Bob, Mark, and Mary against. So in this case, we're just going to type in user destination, and that's it. And now it's going to ask, where do you want to put columns 2, 3, and 4? From there, I can actually drop down and select any one of these. But in this case, we'll just type it out. We want to go to function. The next one we want to do is building. And then we have city. And then next one over, we have state. Now, you can do the drop down and pick the existing meta keys if you want, or you can go ahead and create new meta keys just by typing this information out. If you do that on a log decoder, you're going to have to add these keys into your table map, and then assuming that you've already indexed these keys, or if not, you'll have to add these to your indexes as well if you choose to index that data. So the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and click next. Here are my 4 additions to my one index, and we'll just do finish. Goes and runs and completes. At this point, there's nothing to restart. There's nothing to change. The feed will, at this point, start looking for those usernames in any of the sessions that are captured, whether a log or packet, and we'll add in that additional information. Great as a business intel type feed. We want to add additional information in. The next one we're going to do is similar. We're going to go ahead again, do a custom feed. We'll just call this my JA3. I'll do it as a dash feed because I already have one in there. And we're going to go ahead and click browse and then find the file that we're going to use. So I've gone ahead here and selected my JA3 feed. I'm going to go click next, and again, same thing. Now, JA3 hashes typically come out of packet decoders because they're the ones that are actually looking for that. So in this case, we'll just put it to context hub and we'll put it to my packet decoder. So we'll go ahead and click next. This is basically the same procedure that we just did. So we're going to do non-IP, index column is 1, callback key is going to be JA3. And then where do I want to add this? Well, maybe I want to add this to the alert.id meta key, for example. And same exact procedure, click finish. It's going to go ahead and upload that. The last feed I want to talk about will be an IP matching feed. And in this case, I don't care whether it's a source address or a destination address. I just want to tag that traffic. So we'll walk through and go ahead and do this same procedure again. So let's go ahead and click plus. Again, custom feed. And now we're going to go ahead and call this DNS providers, for example, because that's what's actually in that feed file. So now let me go ahead and load up the file. And then from there, we'll click next. Push this to all of my components again. Now in this case, it is an IP, so I don't want to do it as a non-IP. I want to do it as an IP so that, again, it doesn't matter whether it's the source address or the destination address. Anytime it sees these 4 addresses in this example, it's going to go ahead and tag the names that I have in column 2. So let's just go ahead, we'll do an index column as 1. And now where do I want to put this? Maybe I want to put this to host state, for example. It really doesn't matter for this example, but wherever I want to put it. And now it just follows through the same thing. So we'll click finish, and it'll go through and deploy that to all the devices that we select. So that's really all that's involved in deploying a feed within NetWitness. Now again, remember that any of those columns of data that we added could be used anywhere within the system. I could put a search out there for, in the previous example of the roles for Bedford, Massachusetts, for example, or Reston, Virginia. And I can also use those in ESA and so forth. So let's go ahead now and go create an app rule so we can see how that works. App rules are actually on the decoders, so let's pick one. It really doesn't matter because I can actually deploy it. If I have many decoders, log decoder, packet decoders, I can build my app rule and then I can deploy it to everybody else. So let's go ahead and go click config on my decoders. Let's click on app rules. And when you click on this, there'll actually be a lot here out of the box. So you can sort of see an example of what one of these looks like. Account logon failure, for example. If the EC activity equals logon and EC outcome equals failure, or user activity failed login, then tag that traffic. Using that as an example, let's go ahead and go create a new one. So going back to what we talked about before with non-standard traffic, let's go ahead and create an app rule for that. Disallowed traffic. Whatever I put in the rule name is going to go into the meta key that I choose under the session options. The rule name words will be present when this rule hits and it actually writes the key. So what's the condition here? We want an IP.dst port and we want that not equals to, what was it, 80, 443, and 53. Once I go ahead and get my condition put in there, then I can go click on Alert, and then I can pick which key I want to write these words into. So maybe, for example, I put those into alert.id. It really doesn't matter. I can go create my own. Procedure will be exactly the same. Once I click OK, we see here it gets dropped at the bottom, and you click Apply. Now, when you click Apply, it'll show you all the rules, all the existing rules, all the rules to be applied. And what it'll do is it'll actually go ahead and go deploy that rule to the decoder that I am on currently. Now, if I have multiple decoders and I want to push that out, I can simply go to Actions, click Push. If I wanted to select just one of these, when I go here, I have the choice of either pushing just the rule that I picked or all of them. So in our case, let's go back and properly select the right one. Go to Actions, Push, Selection. Now it'll say, hey, you have two other, in my example, you have two other decoders. Which ones do you want to push to? Well, I want to push it to both of them. This is very important up top here. If you pick Merge, which is the default, it's going to add that into the existing app rule base that you already have, which is what you want to do. If you click Replace All, you saw that there's roughly about a couple hundred app rules. It will actually wipe out all of them and only deploy the one rule that you have checked. So be careful with the Replace All. 99.9% of the time, you're just going to use Merge. And you click Push. It'll say, hey, if there's a rule that has a name in it, we're going to overwrite it. Yeah, that's fine. And now it's going ahead and it's pushing all the app rules, or basically syncing them all between all the decoders. Now, in this case, this was disallowed traffic. So I could very simply write a report that says alert.id equals disallowed traffic. And now I will see everything that comes in from a session perspective that matches that app rule. One of the other places where this is really key, if I have a report that I run constantly or a query in Investigator that is a long type of query, so let's say, for example, username contains, URL contains, IP range contains, those are heavy processes or heavy searching. When you go ahead and run that rule or report, it may take a little while to come out because it needs to process all those contains. If you move that whole query to an app rule and then give it, whatever name that you want, now you can just search on the result of the app rule, and the query that used to take 2, 3, 5, 10 minutes to come back completely will now come back within seconds. So app rules can be used for a couple of different things to make life easier investigating and tagging traffic within NetWitness. I hope that was useful. Thank you for your time.